Welcome to Adventures in Freeze Drying. We are going to try something I've never done before, which will be some roasted chickpeas with some Indian inspiration to them. My whole reason for trying these out is, as you know, we have that trip to Canada coming up for a fishing trip, and I want something a little bit healthier for us to be snacking on in the car, as well as while we're in the fishing boat. We're going all the way up to Clay Lake, which is just north of Vermilion Bay, Ontario, to a little lodge called North Star Lodge. We've been there one other time. It was wonderful. We really enjoyed ourselves fishing. So if you've never been and have been wanting to take a fishing trip to Canada, a great first experience is this North Star Lodge at Vermilion Bay up in Canada and Ontario. I'd recommend you try it, but let's go ahead and get to making these chickpeas and see how they turn out. This recipe calls for 4 cups of chickpeas, which 3 cans was just a little bit over 4 cups of chickpeas once I had them drained. And then it says you should pat them dry with a paper towel before you place them on your pan. So I'm just going to pull them out of my bowl and kind of rub them down as I put them on my pan. Gotten a good amount of moisture off of those chickpeas. It calls for 4 tablespoons of olive oil. Well, I'm not intending these for long-term storage, but still just to get them freeze-dried to be a crunchy snack. I also don't think I want all of that oil on there. So I have this Pampered Chef spritzer that you can put olive oil in, and I'm going to just kind of cover them like that with some olive oil and end up using way less than what it called for. While I'm waiting for my oven to heat up, I'm going to go ahead and add a teaspoon of, this is my garlic powder, into just a little bowl that I have a lid for. A teaspoon of paprika, which this is a new container of paprika, so I need to open it all the way. And then 2 teaspoons of garam masala and of my curry powder, and then I'll shake that all together and have that ready for when my chickpeas come out of the oven. The recipe also calls for sea salt and black pepper or red pepper to taste. I'm going to put just about half a teaspoon of sea salt in there with my spices before I shake it up, and I'll put about the same amount of some fresh ground black pepper in with my spices before I shake it up. My oven is hot, so we're going to go ahead and put the chickpeas in. We're going to let them roast for 25 minutes. And as those are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and toss them once or twice to help make sure that they get toasted evenly. So I'll see you as soon as those are ready to come out of the oven. My chickpeas have been in the oven for almost 25 minutes now. I have gone ahead and stirred them twice during the 25 minutes to help them toast, or whatever you want to call it, more evenly. But let's go ahead and get them out. So now that those are out of the oven, the next step is to get them tossed with the spices or the seasoning. So I'm going to go ahead and attempt to get these into my bowl without spilling a bunch of them on the floor. Next, I've already pre-shook up those spices together so they're ready to go onto the chickpeas. And then I'm going to just toss them around. Oh, these smell really good. That little bit of oil is probably going to help those spices to stick just a little bit. Maybe not as well as if I'd used all the oil, but it's going to be a lot more than probably if I hadn't used any oil. I'm now going to just spread these on my parchment-lined tray. This is a medium tray, and it was 4 cups of chickpeas, so they should fit on here just fine. Get those spread out a little bit. toasting these in the oven has already seemed to dry them out quite a bit. These aren't super duper moist, so these may not take very long in the freeze dryer. I'm putting them in with some other stuff though, so I won't know for sure how long the load would have been if it was just the chickpeas, simply because the other stuff I'm putting in is much wetter. But I'm going to cover this with my lid and get this in the freezer. And the next time we'll see these is when they're coming out of the freeze dryer. I have my chickpeas out of the freeze dryer. They were in a mixed load that took about 26 hours. However, I don't think these would take that long. This would probably be a very short run as far as freeze drying goes, because there wasn't a lot of moisture left in these chickpeas after roasting them. So let's do a taste test, and then I'll get these packaged up and ready to go on our trip. So my whole reason for making these is just to have something that's crunchy I can bring in the car. I can season them to how I like them, that type of a thing, but something that's healthier for you than like a potato chip or a Chex Mix that's full of all kinds of preservatives and other things you just don't need to be eating. These are crunchy. They're lacking a little flavor. Potentially, if I would have added a little more oil, the flavors would have stuck better instead of falling off. But they're not bad. They kind of remind me of just like grape nuts. Probably needed more salt when I first put these together. So if you make this, add a little more salt potentially, or to your own liking, but these are not bad. I think these are still a good snack for my trip. Have you tried something like this? Do you have a better way to get the flavor to stick on something you're going to freeze dry? Drop that in the comments below. But otherwise, we're going to call this a win, and I'm just going to put these in a container that's got a gasket seal, since these are intended for short-term storage, not for me to store long-term. I think you could add your OA, zip it up, and these would keep for a very long time. They're very dry, very crunchy. Not bad at all. Thank you so much for joining me today on Adventures in Freeze Dry, and we will see you next time.